Good, Les Concord, thank you for facilitating me. And Deputy O'Donoghue being Deputy Collins' time, Deputy Joan Collins' time, with the permission of the House. I want to speak on this bill today. I'm delighted to, but it's probably 8 years, 10 years too late, because we saw when the banking crisis hit, we saw when the vulture funds arrived, and we saw the mushrooming of the legal eagles and everybody else. No disrespect to yourself, Corey, look, or Les Concord, but we saw what went on in the courts, and I've been present at so many evictions, and my colleagues, Deputy Carol Nolan and Deputy Michael Collins, had to visit KBC Bank after the Strokestown event. We had to visit the private security company in Tipperary, first of all, with one Jerry Beads, and indeed had meetings with them there, because it's the Wild West when it comes to security, and indeed when it comes to the intimidation that goes on and has gone on. There's no place in this country for a third force. I've said this dozens of times, and we had a third force. We have in Garda Síochána, which I'm proud to support all my life, and our army, and that's it. We have obviously an auxiliary force in the FCA at night time in the LDF, but now we had this third force arrived. A murky, dirty underworld of business, and they were meant to be regulated. And while the security office, and they were in my own town, in Tipperary town, were doing their best, it was just, as I said, the Wild West. And violence and intimidation. And when you had men with balaclavas and dogs crawling across fields in a field in Wexford one night, when I was on the telephone to the woman of the house, of the farmhouse, standing up in the gate and be pulled off it. And it's sadly to say, Garda Síochána were present, and they turned their back at what happened. And that was totally, and I met the Garda Chief Superintendent afterwards and raised it. But look, this regulation doesn't go far enough, because this is the crowd, I mentioned earlier, the former UDR, senior officer, down here heading up one of these with the knuckle dusters and with the heavies and with all the kinds of padding and the intimidation. And we saw what happened here in Dublin in Balbriggan, and we saw what happened in other areas as well. And we saw where the vehicles were parked in the Garda station in Balbriggan. There must be a separation of powers between Garda Síochána, first of all the courts, and Garda Síochána and these agents, because many of them were thugs, vagabonds and thugs and heavies. And that language might be strong, can't call the rest what they were. And they had blackened faces and little respect for anybody. And even in cases where Gardaí did challenge them and try to, unfortunately in rural area, one or two guards, they just pushed the Gardaí out of the way. Because people get power like that and get away with things like that. Every one of these are meant to have a badge. A nightclub owner or anybody else or security in a pub must have a registered with a badge on their arm. We looked for badges of those people, and we didn't have them. And we didn't get out of the way, we'd be blown into eternity, literally. I was standing on the roadsides in Ferns, in Wexford. I was in Galway. I was in many parts of the country. People don't need to know this, but I was there. And the people were turned to the mercy of these vultures. And the vulture funds. And Minister Michael Noonan welcomed them in here. And I heard what Deputy O'Brien said about Michael Noonan welcoming him here. Now we have the result of it in an appalling mess because of all the evictions and all the hoarding and all the stopping our stock being stocked. But look, this bill doesn't go far enough. We need to regulate the security industry profoundly, same as in Garda Síochána. When they come to someone's home, and sometimes they don't have the documents at all, the eviction orders, sometimes they don't have the court orders, and sometimes they have photocopies, and sometimes they're misspellings. And to be honest, many ordinary ranking guy Gardaí don't understand this no more than myself. Legal jargon, you would, last Concola, and they don't understand it. And many times evictions are carried out without court sanction. They are, and I would appeal to the justices as well, and there's a separation of powers, to ensure that they know when they're signing that these are carried out in a dignified, respectful. There shouldn't be any place for them, but I have no truck for people who don't want to pay, or won't pay and can't pay, and all these issues who are vagabond, but I have for families and ordinary people. And now, farmers are waking up in the morning, at the middle of the night, getting a phone call from their neighbours, telling them, hey, Johnny, I saw your farm on the web last night at 12 o'clock, put up by AIB and our banks that are supposed to be. The banks we bailed out, and the farms are sold without the consent of the people overnight, literally, and to vulture funds. And this is happening, the land that we fought for, the land that my late father fought for, spent 14 months in prison, and the land that Liam Lynch fought for, the land that Michael Collins fought for, the land that we all fought, Dan Breen, Sean Tracy, Pat Crone, all of them, up and down the country. And we're back to this now, at this point in time. It's really, really needs, this bill is inadequate, we'll be submitting amendments. Our group here. It's shameful. And I want to thank Deputy Nolan and Deputy Collins for coming with me and those issues we had. We went for half an hour, I think, to KBC Bank. We ended up there for 9 hours. And now KBC Bank are leaving the place. So are other banks that are leaving after doing all the dirt. There's blood on people's hands here, and it's not good enough. Let's count holder.